If you see this video right now, something strange is about to happen in your reality. Not maybe, not possibly, definitely, within hours, days, or weeks maximum, your physical reality will shift in ways that seem impossible, unexplainable, almost magical if you didn't understand quantum mechanics underlying what appears as everyday reality. This isn't prediction based on astrology or intuition. This is quantum physics. The fact that you're watching this specific video at this specific moment means your consciousness has reached frequency where quantum field organizes reality shifts around you, where probability waves collapse in your favor automatically, where what seemed impossible becomes inevitable through quantum mechanics responding to consciousness. State you've achieved through everything you've survived that brought you to exact frequency where seeing this video isn't coincidence but quantum correlation between your consciousness and transmission. This video carries beyond words into direct frequency activation. The strangeness that's about to happen isn't random chaos. The strangeness is quantum field reorganizing your physical reality to match consciousness. Reality you've been developing internally while external circumstances haven't caught up yet to internal transformation, creating gap between who you are energetically and what you're experiencing physically. That gap is closing now, rapidly. The quantum field doesn't maintain gaps indefinitely. Field maintains gaps only long enough for consciousness to stabilize new frequency before physical reality reorganizes to match new frequency, creating experience shift that seems sudden from physical perspective, but is actually culmination of quantum process that's been building since you started transforming, since you started evolving, since you started becoming frequency that you are now that makes you visible to quantum intelligence. Organizing reality shifts around consciousness operating at frequencies most humans haven't reached yet. Because they haven't been through what you've been through that transformed you into consciousness, quantum field recognizes as ready for reality shift. Can you sense it? That electric anticipation? That feeling something's coming, something's building, something's about to break through into physical reality that's been brewing in quantum reality for longer than you consciously know? That's not anxiety. That's accurate perception of quantum momentum building toward manifestation point where internal shift becomes external shift, where consciousness transformation becomes circumstance transformation, where frequency change creates reality change through quantum mechanics that function whether you understand them or believe them, or even know they exist, because quantum field operates according to physics, not according to beliefs. And you've reached physics point where reality shift becomes inevitable, regardless of what you think about reality shifts, or whether you're consciously prepared for strangeness that's about to unfold. The warning in this title isn't fear-based. Warning is preparation-based. Strange things happening when consciousness isn't prepared creates confusion, fear, doubting your sanity. Strange things happening when consciousness is prepared creates recognition, excitement, validation that quantum mechanics are real and you're operating at frequency where quantum becomes visible rather than remaining invisible beneath physical appearances that seem like complete reality when actually physical is surface level and quantum is causation level. And you're about to experience causation level affecting surface level in ways that make quantum undeniable, make consciousness power obvious, make reality's responsiveness to frequency unmistakable through experiences so strange, so synchronistic, so precisely aligned with what you need, that coincidence. Explanation becomes absurd and quantum explanation becomes only rational framework for understanding what's happening. Write in comments, "I'm ready for strange." 4 words declaring you're not resisting quantum strangeness, not demanding reality stay predictable, not clinging to normal when normal is lower frequency experience and strange is higher frequency experience that you're ready for, prepared for, welcoming through recognition that this video appearing means consciousness has crossed threshold where quantum field begins manifesting strangeness that isn't chaos but is precision. Organization of reality around your frequency, creating experiences that seem strange only because they're different from previous reality organization that matched previous frequency before transformation, elevated frequency to level where different organization creates different experiences that feel strange initially before becoming new normal. As consciousness adjusts to operating at frequency, where quantum becomes obvious rather than hidden, where manifestation becomes rapid rather than slow, where reality becomes responsive rather than fixed in patterns that don't serve consciousness, that's evolved beyond patterns into frequencies, where new patterns emerge automatically through quantum field organizing reality around whatever frequency consciousness stabilizes at through transformation. Completing what brought you to this moment. This video, this warning that something strange is about to happen, and strangeness is gift, not curse. Evolution, not devolution, upgrade, not breakdown of reality, but breakthrough into reality layer that exists always, but becomes accessible only when frequency reaches level where quantum layer becomes perceivable to consciousness, operating at quantum frequencies rather than remaining trapped at physical frequencies where quantum remains invisible, unmanifested, theoretical rather than experienced, embodied, undeniable. You've been experiencing increasingly bizarre phenomena that you've been dismissing, questioning, wondering if you're losing grip on consensus reality. You're not losing grip. You're gaining perception of quantum reality underlying consensus, reality that most people can't perceive because their frequency keeps them locked into physical-only perception, while your frequency has increased enough that quantum perception activates, allowing you to perceive reality layers that exist always but become visible only at frequencies you've reached through transformation, that elevated consciousness beyond normal into extraordinary, that feels abnormal. Initially because extraordinary isn't common, but that doesn't make extraordinary wrong. It makes extraordinary advanced perception of how reality actually functions beneath appearances that seem fixed when actually everything is quantum fluid, responding to consciousness frequencies constantly. Time has been behaving impossibly strange, not just occasionally weird, but consistently impossible. You'll experience hours as minutes, minutes as hours, moments where time seems to stop completely or accelerate dramatically or loop back on itself, creating sensation. You've experienced this exact moment before, not as vague déjà vu, but as precise recognition that this moment is literally repeating, or that you're experiencing multiple timelines simultaneously, or that future and past are bleeding into present, creating temporal confusion. That's not confusion, but accurate perception of quantum time, where all moments exist simultaneously, and linear time is illusion created by consciousness. Experiencing simultaneity sequentially through focusing attention moment by moment, when actually all moments are present moment in quantum field, and you're beginning to perceive that truth directly, rather than experiencing only linear illusion that keeps most consciousness trapped in sequential experience. Numbers and symbols appearing everywhere with eerie synchronicity. Same numbers repeatedly, on clocks, receipts, license plates, addresses, not occasionally, but constantly. 1111, 333, 444, sequences that appear so frequently that randomness explanation fails completely. These aren't coincidences. These are quantum field communicating through pattern language, through symbol synchronicity, through number sequences that bypass verbal mind into direct knowing that you're being guided, that you're on path, that reality is organizing around you through intelligence that uses whatever gets your attention, including numbers that appear with frequency impossible to explain through chance when actually appearance is quantum intentional, creating recognition moments where you notice field is noticing you, where you perceive reality responding to you, where you recognize you're not random observer but central organizer that reality is arranging itself around. Objects appearing and disappearing in ways that defy physical laws. You put something somewhere, you know you put it there, you return and it's gone, then reappears in original location, or different location without physical explanation. Not forgetfulness, quantum fluctuation where object exists in superposition until observation collapses it into location, and sometimes observation collapses it into different location than previous observation, creating experience of object moving without physical movement through quantum level reorganization that physical level experiences as impossible movement. You're not going crazy. You're perceiving quantum nature of matter that exists as probability until consciousness observes it into definite location, and sometimes probability collapses differently than expected. Creating strangeness that reveals reality is quantum organized, not physically fixed. Electrical devices responding to your emotional states. Lights flickering when you're upset. Electronics malfunctioning when you're stressed. Devices turning on or off, correlating with your mood shifts. This isn't imagination. This is electromagnetic field around your body, intensifying through frequency increase, making your biofield strong enough to affect electronic devices that operate through electromagnetic fields, sensing your field as interference pattern that disrupts their functioning, creating observable correlation between your internal states and external devices. Proving consciousness affects matter, not just metaphorically, but measurably through electromagnetic effects that become undeniable when consciousness reaches frequency where biofield strengthens enough to influence physical devices. Dreams becoming precognitive with disturbing accuracy. You dream something, then it happens exactly as dreamed within days or weeks. Not vague similarities, precise matches between dream content and physical events that unfold, matching dream details so specifically that coincidence becomes impossible explanation. Dreams aren't random neural processing. Dreams are consciousness accessing quantum probabilities, perceiving future potentials before they manifest physically. Downloading information from quantum field that knows all possibilities and shows you specific possibilities most likely to collapse into physical experience based on current trajectory, giving you preview of what's coming, preparation for what's manifesting, validation that you're perceiving quantum level where future exists as probability before collapsing into actuality. People acting strangely around you without you changing behavior externally. Some people suddenly drawn to you inexplicably. Others uncomfortable near you for reasons they can't articulate. Strangers staring, approaching, commenting that something about you feels different, powerful, unusual. This reaction isn't about physical appearance. This is people sensing your frequency increase even though they can't identify what they're sensing consciously. Responding to energetic shift that's obvious to sensitive perception, even when invisible to normal perception, creating polarized responses where compatible frequencies are attracted and incompatible frequencies are repelled automatically through resonance mechanics that operate beneath conscious awareness, organizing social reality around frequency compatibility. These phenomena, time distortion, number synchronicity, object anomalies, electronic effects, precognitive dreams, people reactions. They're not separate strangeness, but unified confirmation that you're in pre-manifestation quantum state, where consciousness has shifted frequency, but physical reality hasn't fully reorganized yet to match new frequency, creating temporary period, where you experience both old reality still manifested and new reality beginning to bleed through in strange ways that are a preview of coming complete shift when physical fully catches up to quantum and strangeness becomes new normal as reality reorganizes totally around frequency you've become. Everything strange you've experienced, every unexplainable event, every impossible synchronicity, every moment reality seemed to glitch. Wasn't random weirdness or signs you're unstable. Everything strange was quantum field training you, preparing you, gradually exposing you to quantum strangeness in doses you could handle, so that when major reality shift happens, when truly strange manifestations begin, when quantum becomes undeniably obvious rather than subtly present, you're prepared to recognize strangeness as quantum mechanics functioning rather than freaking out believing you're experiencing psychosis or reality breakdown when actually you're experiencing reality breakthrough into perception level where quantum becomes visible to consciousness operating at frequencies most humans haven't reached. Think about scuba diving training. Before diving deep, you practice in shallow water. You experience pressure gradually. You learn to trust equipment in controlled environment. You develop skills in safe conditions. Then you dive deep, where pressure is intense, darkness is complete, strangeness is overwhelming. But you're prepared because shallow training developed capacity to handle deep experience without panicking, without failing, without being overwhelmed by strangeness that would terrify untrained consciousness. Your strange experiences have been shallow training. Reality glitches were learning to perceive quantum fluctuation. Synchronicities were developing recognition of quantum organization. Time distortions were practicing non-linear perception. All preparing you for deep dive into quantum reality that's coming, where strangeness intensifies exponentially, but you're prepared through gradual exposure that built capacity. The training wasn't gentle because quantum reality isn't gentle. Quantum reality is powerful, strange, operating according to laws that contradict physical common sense, requiring consciousness strong enough to hold quantum paradox without collapsing into confusion, fear, denial of what's experienced, because experience contradicts everything consensus reality taught you about how reality functions. You had to be broken of consensus beliefs. You had to experience enough impossible events that possible, impossible categories dissolved. You had to witness enough synchronicities that coincidence explanation became absurd. You had to endure enough reality glitches that fixed reality assumption crumbled. The breaking wasn't punishment. Breaking was necessary preparation for consciousness to hold quantum truth that reality is fluid, responsive, organized by consciousness frequency rather than being fixed, random, indifferent to consciousness. Consider astronaut training. Astronauts experience zero gravity in airplane, creating brief weightlessness repeatedly until consciousness adjusts to weightless experience that contradicts lifetime of gravity experience. Without training, sudden weightlessness creates nausea, disorientation, inability to function. With training, weightlessness becomes navigable strangeness that consciousness adapts to through repeated exposure. Your strange experiences have been zero-gravity training for consciousness about to experience quantum reality where normal rules don't apply, where physical expectations fail, where strangeness is baseline rather than anomaly, and consciousness must function in strangeness without freaking out, without trying to force quantum reality to behave according to physical rules that don't govern quantum level. The isolation you felt because you couldn't share strange experiences without people thinking you're crazy. That isolation was necessary. You couldn't have external validation while developing internal knowing. You had to trust your experience over consensus opinion. You had to believe what you perceived despite everyone saying you're imagining things. You had to develop unshakable knowing that what you experience is real even when unprovable, even when unexplainable, even when contradicting everything others believe about reality. That internal knowing is foundation for what's coming. When truly strange manifestations begin, when reality shifts dramatically, when quantum becomes undeniable, you'll need absolute trust in your perception because external validation won't exist immediately. You'll be pioneering experience that others haven't reached yet, and you must trust yourself completely without needing others to confirm what you're experiencing. Every moment you questioned your sanity, you were developing sanity beyond consensus, where sanity means trusting direct experience over inherited beliefs about what's possible. Every time you couldn't explain what happened, You were learning that explanation isn't necessary for experience to be valid. Every instance you felt alone in strangeness, you were building capacity to stand in truth, regardless of whether anyone else sees truth yet. The training is complete. The preparation is finished. The strangeness you've experienced was preview. What's coming is full-feature presentation of quantum reality manifesting through your life in ways so strange, so synchronistic, so obviously organized around you that you'll know beyond doubt that consciousness creates reality, that frequency determines manifestation, that you're not passive observer but active organizer of reality. Experienced through frequency, you broadcast and quantum field responds to by collapsing probabilities matching frequency, creating reality experience that mirrors consciousness state perfectly. Something is activating in your energy field right now that goes beyond intellectual understanding of words. There's frequency transmission installing quantum codes, activation patterns, recognition sequences directly into consciousness, bypassing mental processing into being level, where transformation occurs through receiving transmission rather than through understanding information. Can you feel activation happening? Warmth in body, tingling in extremities, pressure in head, especially crown area, sense of expansion in chest. Knowing beyond thought that something significant is occurring beneath surface awareness, in quantum levels where consciousness transforms before physical experience reflects transformation. The activation is preparing your consciousness field to handle incoming strangeness. Without activation, sudden manifestation increase would overwhelm system, creating fear response that blocks manifestations rather than allowing them. With activation, consciousness expands capacity to receive rapid manifestation, handle quantum strangeness, integrate reality shifts without resistance that would slow or block shifts from completing. Think of activation as expanding bandwidth. Previously, consciousness could receive limited information flow. Activation expands bandwidth, allowing massive information flow, rapid manifestation flow, intense synchronicity flow, without system overloading from too much too fast, creating shutdown response that consciousness uses to protect itself from overwhelm. The codes installing through transmission aren't arbitrary. Codes are specific frequency patterns that activate dormant capacities in consciousness designed to function at quantum frequencies but remained inactive at lower frequencies where activation would create instability. Now that base frequency has increased through everything you've survived, activation becomes safe, appropriate, necessary for consciousness to utilize full capacity rather than operating at fraction of potential. Because higher capacities remained dormant, waiting for frequency increase that makes activation stable rather than destabilizing. Codes activate. Quantum perception, where you see probability fields before collapse. Timeline navigation, where you choose consciously which timeline to experience. Manifestation acceleration, where thought to reality time frame compresses dramatically. Synchronicity recognition, where you perceive quantum organization rather than seeing coincidence. But here's critical understanding before activation completes and strangeness begins manifesting. You must allow strangeness rather than resist strangeness. Resistance blocks manifestation. Allowing permits manifestation. When strange synchronicity appears, recognize it as quantum organization rather than dismissing as coincidence. When impossible manifestation occurs, accept it as quantum mechanics rather than doubting it happened. When reality glitches, perceive it as quantum fluctuation rather than questioning your perception. Allowing means remaining open to strangeness, receptive to impossible becoming possible. Trusting that quantum field knows what it's doing, even when manifestation seems strange, unexpected, different from what you consciously planned. The cliffhanger is this: within very short time frame, hours to days maximum, you'll experience first major manifestation that confirms everything this transmission is communicating. Not small synchronicity, major manifestation. Something you've wanted, needed, or been working toward will suddenly appear through pathway you didn't create, through circumstances you didn't arrange, through quantum organization that bypasses normal cause-effect creating result without you doing actions that normally create that result. The manifestation will be undeniable. The strangeness will be obvious. The quantum nature will be unmistakable. And you'll know with absolute certainty that consciousness creates reality, that frequency determines manifestation, that you're operating at level where quantum becomes visible rather than remaining theoretical. The activation completing now prepares you to receive that manifestation without blocking it through doubt, without dismissing it through disbelief, without minimizing it through rationalization that tries to explain quantum manifestation through normal cause-effect, when actually quantum manifestation bypasses normal causation through field organization that operates beyond physical mechanics into consciousness mechanics, where intention plus frequency equals manifestation without middle steps. That physical manifestation requires you're being prepared. Activation is occurring, bandwidth is expanding, codes are installing, strangeness is imminent. Write in comments, I allow quantum strangeness. Declaration that you're not resisting manifestations because they seem strange, not blocking synchronicities because they seem impossible, not dismissing reality shifts because they contradict previous understanding. Allowing is key. Resistance blocks. Allowing permits. And what's about to manifest requires allowing at level you haven't needed before because previous manifestations were gentle enough to accept easily, but coming manifestations are strange enough that acceptance requires deliberate allowing rather than automatic receiving. 3 years ago, I experienced reality shift so strange, so undeniable, so obviously quantum organized that every doubt about consciousness creating reality dissolved instantly. I was struggling financially, severely, couldn't pay rent, credit cards maxed, no obvious solution appearing through normal channels. I'd been visualizing, affirming, trying every manifestation technique, desperately hoping something would work, while simultaneously doubting anything would work because physical reality showed no evidence that consciousness affects circumstances and desperation was blocking faith that's necessary for quantum mechanics to function through consciousness. Then strange things started happening. I'd think about specific amount of money I needed, and within hours someone would contact me offering exactly that amount for random service I'd forgotten I offered. I'd worry about specific bill, and unexpected refund would arrive covering exact amount of bill. I'd need specific item, and stranger would give me that exact item, saying they felt compelled to give it to me despite not knowing I needed it. The synchronicities became so frequent, so precise, so impossible to explain through coincidence that I had to admit something beyond normal causation was organizing reality around my consciousness, responding to needs I'd been focusing on creating manifestations through pathways I didn't create. The pivotal moment came when I needed $5,000 within 3 days, or I'd be evicted. No way to manifest that amount through normal means in 3 days. I'd exhausted all options, asked everyone, tried everything. I was preparing to accept eviction when something shifted. I stopped trying to figure out how money would come. I stopped stressing about where it would come from. I just knew, beyond logic, beyond reason, that money would appear because quantum field was organizing reality around me, and if I needed 5,000 within 3 days, quantum field would manifest it through whatever pathway was available, even if pathway seemed impossible from physical perspective. 2 days later, phone rang. Unknown number. Person said they'd bought something from me 2 years ago, loved it, wanted to buy larger quantity. Could they pay up front? Would $5,000 deposit work to start production? I hadn't marketed to this person. I hadn't contacted them. I didn't even remember selling them anything originally. They appeared from nowhere, offering exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it, through circumstances I couldn't have created through any normal effort. The strangeness was undeniable. The quantum organization was obvious. The consciousness creation of reality became fact rather than theory through experience so direct, so impossible to explain otherwise, so perfectly matched to need that doubt evaporated and knowing replaced it. After that experience, reality never looked same. I couldn't unknow what I knew. I couldn't dismiss consciousness power after experiencing it directly. I couldn't return to believing reality is random after witnessing reality organizing around consciousness with precision that randomness could never create. And more manifestations followed, each stranger than previous, each more obviously quantum organized, each confirming that frequency determines manifestation, consciousness creates circumstances, reality responds to being state more powerfully than to doing actions. What I learned through direct experience that changed everything. Quantum manifestation doesn't look like normal manifestation. Normal manifestation follows visible cause effect. Quantum manifestation bypasses visible causation through field organization, creating results without you doing actions that normally create results. The strangeness is how you know it's quantum rather than normal. If manifestation makes logical sense, it's probably normal causation. If manifestation seems impossible, appears from nowhere, arrives through inexplicable circumstances, that's quantum mechanics, functioning through consciousness operating at frequency, where quantum becomes visible manifestation mechanism. You're about to experience what I experienced. The strangeness I'm describing will become your direct experience. Not because you're special, but because you've reached frequency where quantum manifestation activates naturally through consciousness, operating at level where quantum mechanics respond to frequency, automatically creating manifestations that seem strange only because you haven't seen quantum manifestation obviously enough to recognize it when it happens. You're being prepared through this transmission to recognize quantum when it manifests, so you don't block it through doubt, don't dismiss it through disbelief. Don't miss it through expecting manifestation to look normal when quantum manifestation looks strange by nature. Subscribe because what's coming requires support, validation, continued transmission that helps consciousness navigate quantum strangeness without freaking out, without doubting, without falling back into consensus belief that reality is fixed when actually reality is fluid, responding to consciousness constantly through quantum mechanics that function perfectly when consciousness allows rather than resists strangeness that is quantum nature manifesting. Here's quantum truth that explains why manifestations become stranger as frequency increases. Normal manifestations happen at physical frequency through visible cause effect that consciousness recognizes as logical sequence. Strange manifestations happen at quantum frequency through invisible field organization that bypasses visible causation, creating results that seem impossible because visible causation didn't occur, yet results manifested anyway through quantum pathway that operates beyond physical mechanics into consciousness mechanics, where frequency determines manifestation directly without requiring physical intermediary steps that normal manifestation needs. Think about different manifestation levels like different internet speeds. Dial-up internet transfers data slowly through limited bandwidth, requiring time for information to arrive. Fiber optic internet transfers data instantly through massive bandwidth, making information appear immediately. Both transfer same information, but speed differs dramatically based on bandwidth capacity. Normal consciousness operates like dial-up. Manifestations happen slowly through physical steps, requiring time for circumstances to arrange, creating gradual manifestation that makes sense logically. Quantum consciousness operates like fiber optic. Manifestations happen rapidly through field organization, requiring no visible steps, making instant manifestation that seems strange logically because logical mind expects steps that didn't happen yet result appeared. The strangeness isn't malfunction. Strangeness is upgrade. Your consciousness has expanded bandwidth. You're no longer limited to slow physical manifestation requiring visible steps. You can now access rapid quantum manifestation, bypassing visible steps through field organization that creates results directly from frequency without needing intermediate actions that physical level requires. The strangeness confirms upgrade. If manifestations were still happening through normal causation, you'd still be operating at physical frequency. Manifestations happening through impossible pathways, inexplicable synchronicities, bypassed causation proves you're operating at quantum frequency, where different laws apply, different mechanics function, different possibilities exist than physical frequency allows. Scientists studying quantum mechanics discovered that particles behave differently when observed than when unobserved. Observation itself affects outcome. Consciousness affects reality at quantum level through observation, collapsing probability waves into specific manifestations. Most scientists study this as particle physics. Few recognize implications for consciousness. If consciousness affects particles through observation, consciousness affects all reality through observation, because all reality is particles organized into forms. And if consciousness affects particles, consciousness affects forms through affecting particle organization that creates forms. You're living proof of quantum mechanics functioning through human consciousness. Strange manifestations are empirical evidence that your consciousness is affecting reality organization at quantum level before physical level, where most consciousness operates creating only slow manifestations through physical actions. You're not hoping quantum mechanics work. You're experiencing quantum mechanics working through manifestations so strange that physical explanation fails, requiring quantum explanation as only rational framework for understanding how manifestations occurred without visible causation creating them. The shocking revelation is that normal people dismiss quantum manifestations as coincidence because accepting quantum manifestation requires accepting that reality isn't fixed, that consciousness creates circumstances, that you're not victim of random reality, but creator of experienced reality through frequency, determining which probabilities collapse into experiences. Most people resist this recognition because accepting consciousness power means accepting responsibility for reality creation, and responsibility feels overwhelming when you've been conditioned to believe you're powerless victim of external circumstances beyond your control. But you've moved beyond that conditioning. You've experienced enough strange manifestations that dismissing them as coincidence became impossible, requiring you to accept quantum truth that consciousness creates reality through frequency determining manifestation. The more you accept rather than resist strangeness, the stranger manifestations become because acceptance allows quantum mechanics to function fully, while resistance blocks quantum function, creating only normal manifestations that consensus reality accepts. You're being asked to embrace strangeness. Welcome impossible manifestations. Recognize that strange is evidence of quantum operating at full capacity through consciousness that's not limiting quantum power through demanding manifestations. Make logical sense when quantum manifestations transcend logic through operating according to consciousness mechanics rather than physical mechanics that logic understands but quantum transcends. Strange is new normal. Impossible is becoming possible. Quantum is becoming obvious, and strangeness level will increase as frequency continues rising because higher frequencies access stranger quantum manifestations that lower frequencies can't perceive or receive, creating progression where strangeness that seems extreme now will seem normal later when even stranger manifestations become baseline through continued frequency increase that's occurring, whether you consciously direct it or passively allow it, because you've crossed threshold where quantum evolution becomes automatic rather than requiring effort to create evolution that now creates itself through momentum established by reaching frequency level where quantum field takes over evolution process and consciousness rides wave rather than generating wave. There are specific signs confirming major quantum shift is imminent. that strangeness is about to intensify dramatically, that reality reorganization is happening now at quantum level and will manifest at physical level within very short time frame, creating experiences so strange that preparation is necessary to recognize strangeness as quantum function rather than freaking out thinking reality is breaking, when actually reality is breaking through from quantum level into physical experience. If you're experiencing 3 or more signs, shift is imminent, and preparation must happen now through recognizing signs, understanding what's coming, allowing strangeness rather than resisting it. First sign: sleep becomes extremely disrupted, not from anxiety but from energy moving through system. You wake at strange hours, especially 3-4 a.m. You need less sleep but feel more energized. Dreams become hyper-vivid, precognitive, teaching experiences rather than random neural processing. This sleep disruption is consciousness adjusting to higher frequencies that physical body integrates during sleep, requiring more integration time than normal consciousness needs. Creating sleep pattern changes that stabilize after adjustment completes, but during adjustment creates unusual sleep experiences that confirm energetic upgrade occurring. Second sign: you lose interest suddenly in things that consumed your attention previously. Relationships that felt important feel irrelevant. Goals that motivated you feel meaningless. Activities that engaged you feel boring. This interest loss isn't depression. This is frequency shift making you incompatible with lower frequency engagements that don't match new frequency, creating natural disengagement that prepares you for new engagements matching new frequency that will appear after old engagements release completely through interest loss. That's quantum guidance saying these no longer serve, these aren't aligned, these must be released for space to open for what matches frequency you're becoming. Third sign: you experience physical sensations without physical cause, vibrations running through body, pressure in head, heat waves moving through system, heart pounding without exertion. These aren't medical symptoms. These are energetic symptoms of quantum activation occurring at cellular level, reorganizing physical form to accommodate higher frequencies that previous physical structure couldn't hold, requiring body upgrade that creates temporary symptoms during upgrade process that stabilize after completion. Fourth sign: electronics malfunction around you with increasing frequency and intensity. Not just occasional glitch, but consistent pattern, where devices behave strangely in your presence. Lights flicker when you enter rooms, technology fails, then mysteriously works when you're calmer.